Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
Arthur?
Hey Jeff, how you doing?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. And it's getting better each and every single day. How you doing?
All right. Ready when you are.
All right. You're not on a laptop or a computer?
I am. For the audio quality, do you really need the video?
Yes, because my audience they want to see your beautiful face.
Well, I don't think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be too dark. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, it's going to be pretty dark.
Okay. Can you see me pretty good?
Let me try. Hang on. I'm going to try. Yeah, you look great. Let me see another look. Looking to see if there's any other place here. Not looking good.
Hmm.
I don't know if there's any more light. Hang on. Any other light I can add? Let me see what I can do. Hang on. Yeah, it's not going to get any better than about that.
Okay. All right, but you can see me pretty good.
Yeah, I sure can. No problem at all.
All right. How you doing? And where you calling in from?
I am doing well. Hang on. I'm going to see if I can get a little more height. Florida today.
Okay.
Okay, let's see if this helps.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's about the best we're going to get.
All righty. Okay, but you can see me pretty good?
Yeah.
Okay. All righty. I appreciate you coming on my program
Sure.
and, dropping these jewels of wisdom in regards to entrepreneurship. I really appreciate it.
No problem, my friend.
All righty. And I told a great friend of mine about you, and he specializes in the private equity space. And actually, you know him, yeah, with Gordon Bazaar.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and he actually wanted to see how y'all can create value for one another. I know he's worked with Tony Robbins and marketing guru Jay Abraham.
Okay.
Yeah, so he wanted to see if y'all could do like a 30-minute conference call to see how y'all can create value for one another in the
Okay.
entrepreneurship realm.
Sure, we can set that up.
Alrighty. So you're good?
Yep.
Alrighty. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Arthur Robinson Jr. I'm the creator and the host of the Powerful Interviews podcast show. And tonight, I have a special interview for each and every one of you. Tonight, I have a wonderful person on the show. He's a great friend of mine. His name is Jeff Hoffman. For those that don't know Jeff Hoffman, let me explain to each and every one of you about this incredible, phenomenal man. Jeff Hoffman has been involved in startups. He's also been involved in both public and private companies. He is the best-selling author of his phenomenal book, which is called Scale. And he's also a Hollywood film producer, and executive producer of an Emmy Award-winning TV show. And that is an awesome, impressive resume. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome the one, the only, the powerful Jeff Hoffman to the show.
Thank you, my friend. Glad to be here today.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Jeff, for taking time out of your busy schedule to educate me and the audience worldwide about building wealth and the true definition of entrepreneurship. I gladly appreciate it.
Sure. I'm looking forward to jumping right into it.
To everyone that's watching and listening right now, I highly recommend go and get your pen and your pad right now. My great friend Jeff Hoffman is going to break down layman's terms about how to build unlimited wealth. And we're going to talk about his phenomenal book, Scale. Is that correct, Jeff?
Yes, sure.
What I'd like to know, and can you explain to the audience in layman's terms, who is the phenomenal Jeff Hoffman? How long you been in your powerful industry? And what is your expertise?
Sure. So I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I'm an engineer by trade. That's what I studied in school. But I didn't do that for very long because I had a job in corporate America in a big company, and it didn't really work out well for me. I wanted more freedom to focus on the things that were more important to me. And it really was about freedom, not so much about money, but those two things are related. Since I had to live paycheck to paycheck, I didn't have the freedom to make my own decisions. I had to do what my boss said, and it just was not a good living. So I quit my job at the engineering company, and I've been building startups ever since. Been in the tech world for a long time. My very first company was building these kiosks that are in airports today. When you go check in for a flight and you check in at a kiosk, that was our first product many years ago. All the way up to later, I was part of Priceline.com in the early days, and later a company called ubid.com. So I've been involved in a lot of tech startups and small companies that we built that grew. Then I took a little break to do some stuff in entertainment, in music, film, and television, just to sort of exercise the other half of your brain, the creative side of your brain, and not just the business side all the time. So that's kind of my background. Now I spend my time trying to teach people the entrepreneurial skill set, trying to teach people how to build their own companies and grow them and make them profitable, because that gives you the freedom to go do what you want to do with the rest of your life.
Now, you are a billionaire and you reached that phenomenal status. And I know that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, they are business partners and they are value investors. Would you actually fall into that sector in regards to being a value investor like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger?
Well, I mean, we were very blessed to be able to build more than one company that became a multi-billion-dollar company. And so that's where we created value in those companies. But I'm not those guys are professional investors and I'm not. I spend my time building things, not really investing in things. So it's a big difference, right? Warren's main business is investing, and that's never been mine. My main business is really more investing time in people and helping people grow by spending time with them. That interests me a lot more than, writing checks for people's proposals. So I'm not, when people want to talk about the investor business and value investing, I'm not the expert in that.
Wow. Now, you wrote a phenomenal book called Scale. And we have entrepreneurs and business owners that are in my network where they looking to scale their business to the 10 million, 20 million, or the $35 million level. What does it take to truly scale a business in regards to entrepreneurs and business owners experiencing massive growth?
So it's a whole list of things, but let's start with a couple of them. The first thing is that most entrepreneurs and business owners are in their own way. They're trying to run the business. And, a lot of times I have business owners, entrepreneurs come to me and say, man, I'm working more hours than I've ever worked, and I don't feel like I'm growing, right? I started my business, it grew, got to a certain level. Let's say you got to $5 million a year in revenue. And then, you went from 0 to 1 to 3 to 4 to 5, and then it's 5, 5, 5. And they say, I stopped growing and I'm working even more. I don't get why that is. And The answer is because once you get to a certain point, you can't do this anymore. A team has to do it. And so what you got to do is spend less time running the company and more time going out and looking for really smart people to run it for you. And that's when they say working on your business instead of in your business. Most people are so buried in the business, running it, that they're not really working on it. I didn't really start to get growth in any of my businesses until I realized that I have to get out of the office. I got to go find smart people like you, and I got to convince them to join my team, and I got to get them to build the business. So as your team grows, your business grows. And as you start to let go and trust people, and, a lot of times there's an old saying, Arthur, the old saying of if you want something done right, do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that saying is that's the death sentence for growth because you can't do everything yourself. You can't tell your salesperson, just let me do the sales calls. And then you can't tell your marketing person, I'll write all the marketing, all the advertising. And then you can't tell your finance person, I'll balance all the books. You can't do that. You can't grow. So that's the first issue to scale, is for you to realize that the more you let go, the more you grow. The more people you bring in, teach them how to do it, and then trust them. Trust and empower and get out of the way. So the real goal is to surround yourself with people smarter than you. You want a team of players so good that when you're on the bench, they keep scoring. And you're like, man, I don't even have to go back in this game. Our bench is so strong. And so that's the first one. I think that people miss is they're trying to do everything themselves, and you're not going to grow that way.
Wow. So basically, you need the right team to help you build your dream if you want to excel your brands to a whole nother level.
Yeah, there is a saying that says, I don't even know if maybe it's a Chinese saying, I don't know, African, I don't know where it came from, but the saying goes like this. The old saying is, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And it's so true, because people are, rushing around doing everything themselves. But if you really want to go far, you need a deep team, and you need to spend time building those people and letting them, they'll be the ones that grow your brand and grow your business for you. But until you get that, until you realize that you can't do it without those people anyway, I don't think your business really grows.
Wow. Now, what would you say that was the blueprint to Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs' success in regards to the Apple brand? Now, before Steve Jobs passed away, he had $119 billion in the bank, cash, liquid, because they took the Apple brand to a whole nother level with the right team. What would you say that the Apple brand success actually came from? Was it Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, or did they have other people to help them take that whole brand to a whole nother level?
Yeah, so they had a huge team. It's funny because sometimes I see entrepreneurs that tell me, Steve Jobs, when I tell them go out and talk to customers, and they'll say, well, Steve Jobs didn't talk to customers, because one time famously on stage, he said something about not talking to customers, but what they missed is the iPhone team was 600 people. So Steve Jobs didn't get in his car and go to the focus groups, but 600 other people did. They had a huge team of people that built that company, and not just one. Steve Jobs was just the spokesperson, right? That's like if you had a coach, Andy Reid, at the end of the Super Bowl, standing up there and saying, I won the Super Bowl all by myself, right? No, actually you didn't. You needed some Patrick Mahomes, and you needed some Tyreek Hill, a little bit of defense out there. The coach doesn't win the game, the whole team does. The coach is part of that. So Steve Jobs was a coach and a marketing guy. Wozniak was the product guy. But they had a massive team of people building it. And part of the reason they became so big was two really smart things. On Wozniak's side, on the tech side, they actually built really cool products, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the iPhone came out, there was nothing like it. But on the Steve Jobs side, on the marketing side, they were really smart in marketing in that they didn't market their brand. So for all your listeners, you got to build a brand, right? And the brand is the way people feel about your product. And, remember Nike's brand? Nike's brand was just do it, right? So what did that make you feel? It made you feel like you wanted to strap on your shoes and get out and do something, right? Because that's what Nike told you. Just do it, man. Go do something. Get out of the house. Smart brands, the best brands, give you a certain feeling. And what Apple did was, and I had a chance, obviously I know Wozniak, but I had a chance to spend time way back then with Jobs too. What they did was, Arthur, they didn't sell phones, they sold cool. All the reason you wanted an iPhone was because all the cool kids had one. Kids didn't go home to their parents and say, I want these features and these settings on my phone. They went home and said, everybody has an iPhone but me. I don't want to be the only kid in school without an iPhone. So what they were selling was coolness, right? It was FOMO. And, nobody wanted to, everybody had that fear of missing out, and nobody wanted to be the only kid in school who didn't have an iPhone. And what they were smart enough to do was sell that fear, sell that cool factor. Cool people have iPhones, you better get one. So they had a brilliant marketing campaign, and their product really was innovative and different. They were the first ones that, you could take a picture that was on your phone and use your fingers to make it bigger or smaller, right? Remember the very first time you could pinch a picture, people were like, oh, wow, that's so cool. I can touch the picture and zoom in on it and make it bigger. So those product ideas, those innovations were really cool. And that's important in the same way, as simple as it was, for my first company, the fact that you used to have to stand in line at the airport to check in and get a boarding pass. And then we created these kiosks where you can just walk up and get your own boarding pass. People picked up that boarding pass and said, hey, that's cool. I don't have to wait in line anymore. So you got to do something better than the way people are doing it. Something that's kind of cool, that improves the process. That was our cool moment. And, we were able to later sell that company sold for over $100 million. The company had a lot of value because we found a better way to do something. So that's what Apple did too. They found a better way to do it, and then they sold it in an even cooler way.
So your brand is your promise?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Your brand is the promise that you are making. I'm glad you said that, because we always ask people, what is your promise? What's your brand promise, right? What are you promising to your customers? And so the best brands out there have a promise like that we recognize, right? There's something about that brand. Walmart's brand promise is low prices. On the outside of every Walmart, it says always low prices. Walmart never promised you that they had good service, right? They don't, but they didn't promise you that. You don't go there for that. They didn't promise you that their products were high quality. They didn't promise you that. They only promised you one thing. Their brand promise was, our prices are always low. If you need light bulbs, you're not going to probably find them cheaper at the mall. They're cheaper at Walmart. And similarly, let's take a look at the other end of the spectrum, Nordstrom's, right? Nordstrom's never promised you a discount, right? They didn't promise you their prices would be good. What they promised you is, if you go buy a sweater there, it's going to be a good sweater and you're going to get good service. So we know what the promise of Nordstrom's is. You don't go to Nordstrom's expecting to get a really low price product. And you don't go to Walmart expecting to get really good service, because you know what the promise is. So for all of your listeners, think about that. What promise can you make a customer? Because the more clear your promise is, the easier it is for customers to pick you in a competitive world and say, man, I want to do business with Arthur's company, because they know what your promise is.
So once people like you, respect you, and know you, that's when their minds are made up and they want to invest in you because you are your brand?
For all of us, yeah, everybody has a personal brand. And every one of us needs to figure out what ours is. In the same way that products have something about them that people like, right? There's something about every product you use. There might be a brand of a type of pants or shirts that you wear because the fit for you, you like the way those shirts look on you, and you like the way they fit. There's something you like about a product, but the same is true about all of us as humans. There is some brand promise of you as a person And you need to figure that out. You need to stop trying to be 100 different things. Figure out what you're really good at and make that your brand promise, right? And that was for me early on. I'll tell you mine as an example, Arthur, and I'd love to know what you think yours is. For mine early on, when technology first started to get really big, people were confused. What is this stuff and how does it work? And for me, the engineers didn't do a good job of explaining it in simple English. They used engineering words and people were like, I'm not an engineer, I don't know what you're talking about. But the marketing people didn't explain it right because they weren't engineers. The marketing people would say, I don't know, I think it works like this. And the engineers would say, no, that's not how it works. So you had marketing people that didn't know tech and you had tech people that didn't speak clear English. So for me, back then, I could take technology and I could explain it in business terms. Why do you need one of these devices, right? Why do you need to invest in that technology? How's it going to help you as a person or as a business? So people invested in me all the time then because they said, man, we need a business person that knows technology and a technology person that understands business, and that was me. So I knew exactly what my thing was. If you're trying to figure out how to use technology in your business, call me because that's what I know how to do. So everybody, each one of us, needs to figure out what is that product feature, what is that thing about you that make people say, man, I need to call Arthur. So I would ask you, Arthur, what do you think your best thing is? What do you think you're best at? That when people come to you, they say, man, Arthur, really need to talk to Arthur if this is what you're looking for. What would yours be?
I am a outside the box networker. So I
Okay.
love bringing people together. That's my strength. So I
All right. Well, that's
specialize in
excellent.
that.
That's very, very valuable strength. In fact, we should talk about that for a minute because, as much as people have heard this, a lot of times it's so true that, you are limited by the strength of your network. The stronger your network, the stronger you are. And the sooner you build it, what I always say is, don't wait to build your network when you need it. You should be building it now, way before you need it. So that the day you say, man, I wish I knew somebody who knew how to do blank, you already know that person. You say, oh man, I got to call Arthur. He's great at that. So you should be building your network every day. And I think that's part of what helped me because I did spend a lot of time building a network. So every time I had an idea, I knew who to call, right? Let's take those kiosks. I'm not a hardware person. I don't know how to make a kiosk. I know how to write software. That's the only thing I knew how to do at the time. And I was like, man, I need somebody that's a hardware engineer, a mechanical engineer, someone that can actually create a kiosk and all the parts in it. But I knew those people because I'd done a lot of networking. So right away when I had the idea, I picked up the phone. I called two guys, right? Robert and Tim. And I was like, guys, I need you. And they're like, what for? And I said, I have this idea, but I don't know how to do it. And you do. So, and then the very first time, because I'm an engineer, I don't have a finance background, like I said earlier, and I needed somebody to help me manage the money part. So I called this guy, Glenn, that I knew right away. I said, hey, Glenn, I need a little help. I can't hire you yet, but I could pay you for like 2 hours a week. Come by every Wednesday after your job. Stop by for 2 hours a week and help me out because you know how to do this stuff and I don't. So the power of your network really determines how far you can go, and you should be building it all the time. So Arthur, your skill of being a real out of the box networker is a really valuable skill to have.
Yes. Yes, most definitely. Because the right people build businesses. The businesses don't build the people.
Right, absolutely. And you got to know those people.
Jeff, let's talk about the power of using video. Now, I know a couple of years back, Google bought YouTube for $1.6 billion. So video is hot right now. Can you explain to the audience the power of using outside the box video? And should entrepreneurs and business leaders use video to expand their brand?
Yeah, I think absolutely. If you look at whether we started with YouTube or whether briefly it was Vine, but now it's TikTok, right? The whole planet is staring at their phone, looking at TikTok now, looking at videos, because video brings you there much more so than a photo does. Watching videos makes people feel like they were standing there and they were part of something. So the same thing applies in business. When you use video to, whether it's marketing you, right? I got somebody, by the way, I'll tell you a really funny one. It was for a job opening. And instead of a resume, I get this email with nothing but a video. And I click on it, and dear Mr. Hoffman, please watch this. So I click on it, and it's this girl. She's sitting at home, and she set up the chairs in her kitchen on the table. She has a little kitchen, little table, 4 chairs. And she's sitting on one side of the table in a chair. The video comes on. So this is, Arthur, instead of sending a resume, an old-fashioned resume for a job, she sent a video. And in the video, she said, hello, Mr. Hoffman, my name's Sarah. She said, watch this. This is me working for you. And then she ran around to the other side of the table and she pretended to be me. And she said, hi, Sarah, my name is Mr. Hoffman. I'm the CEO and I'm looking for a new marketing person. Then she ran around the other side of the table and she said, Mr. Hoffman, I'm Sarah and I would love to work for you. And here's why. Here's my skills and here's what I can do. Then she ran around to the third chair and she said, my name's Jim. I'm the vice president of marketing and you'd be working directly for me. She put on a little play, basically, a little scene that she acted out of pretending she worked for me. And I hired her immediately. It was so creative. And it made me connect to her. And I could see more about her personality and, see how she looked. And I don't mean what you look like physically. I mean, you see someone's facial expressions and they look into the camera and they look you in the eyes and you can see that she seemed to be very genuine and very enthusiastic. So I hired that girl because she was the only one who submitted a video. Everyone else sent me a sheet of paper, right, which they called a resume. So the same thing happens for when you're marketing products. And I'll give you a great business example. An entire billion-dollar company was launched on a little funny video, and that was Dollar Shave Club. Those guys made their own home video, if you remember. These were not professionals. That's actually the guy who started the company in the video. And he made a funny video about Dollar Shave Club and put it out on the internet. And it got so viral because it was funny and people like watching the video that today Dollar Shave Club wound up becoming like $1 billion a year in sales or something. And it all started with the power of video because everybody saw it and everybody remembered it. So I think video is really important for you to grow to your business, and it's just as important for you to sell yourself out there in the world too.
Wow. Can you give your perspective on how do you feel about market growth versus market innovation?
You need them both, but the explosive growth happens to the innovators. In fact, I'll go more than market innovation. I'll say market disruption. The people so I'm going to give you an example. Yellow cab, taxis, Hertz rental car. All of those were just experiencing market growth, right? Because they were slowly maybe getting more rides, more people taking taxis. And Uber was market innovation. They came along and completely rewrote the way you get a ride, right? They disrupted the market, they innovated. They came up with the idea to let your neighbor give you a ride to the airport instead of a yellow taxi somewhere. And so the massive growth, their innovation caused explosive growth, whereas people that keep doing it the same way, their market growth is linear growth. And they're all battling, think about this, they're all battling to take each other's market share, right? So you have 5 different taxi companies downtown or at the airport, and they're all battling to get you to take their taxi. But in a lot of cities, so their market growth is, a lot of it comes from stealing customers from other ones. But market innovation, when you create Uber, is that you get all the new customers that never were taxi customers. If you live in Dubuque, right, Iowa, and there's no, you live out somewhere in Iowa where there are no taxis, you never took a taxi to the airport. So you were not anybody's customer. But when Uber came along and your neighbor could drive you to the airport, suddenly you were a customer. So the innovators get all the new customers and they get way bigger growth than the companies that just wait for organic growth. So what you really want to try to do is be that innovator that brings brand new people to the market that weren't even in the market until they came up with their innovative idea.
Now, you mentioned that powerful word, disruptive, and it's a lot of brands that's disrupting the business industry. Now, you mentioned that powerful brand, Uber, and basically Uber, they don't own no inventory. They leverage off of other people's cars they just own the data. And it's a lot of people that's actually becoming wealthy just by owning the intellectual property rights just to the data alone. How do you feel about tech companies? And I know that technology is constantly evolving. Would you recommend for entrepreneurs and business owners to really focus on specialized knowledge by investing in tech companies?
Yeah, we are just at the beginning of the gold mine of data. We've had a few false starts, right? A few years ago, there was this word out there. Everyone was using the word big data, but they didn't really know what it was yet. But the gold is in the data. The more data people collect, which is why you keep hearing about the Facebooks and the Googles and everybody wanting the data. The data is gold, man. Because the data tells us who's willing to buy what. Anybody that sells something wants to know is who's going to buy it. If I knew in advance who was going to buy my product, I'd go straight over there to them instead of standing there saying, step up, buy one, step up, buy one. If someone said that lady right there, I would run over there and say, ma'am, here you go, because someone told me I already knew she was going to buy it. So the data is what tells us who the buyer is and where they are and what they want to buy and how much they want to spend. So if you could get involved in tech companies that are mining data, collecting data, analyzing data, and selling it, there's two parts. There's the data companies that will collect the data. How are you getting the data in the first place? But then there's this whole field of AI. And AI is about having really smart software to analyze the data, right? So the main thing this artificial intelligence, this AI stuff does, is it looks at huge amounts of data and then it makes decisions based on the data. So I'm a big believer, if you want to invest some money in what's coming next in the future, the data, the AI companies that are focused on collecting tons of data and analyzing it to figure out who's doing what next, they're going to be the big winners. That's where the money is going to be, because they're going to be the ones that know who's buying what and where. Which, by the way, when you hear all these stories about everything and everyone spying on us, whether it's Alexa in your kitchen listening to you or whatever, all these devices that are spying and tracking on you, they're not doing it because they want to know what you said to your girlfriend last night. They're doing it because they want you to buy something. And so they're trying to figure out what you want, what you like, what you don't like, and how to sell more stuff to you. It's all about the almighty dollar. Everybody's trying to sell to you. So everybody's trying to get the data. Then everybody's trying to analyze the data to say, what does Arthur want? How much money does he have? And, when's he going to buy something? What's he going to buy? And how can I sell him that thing that he wants to buy? Data is where it's at. And AI is having the smart software to study the data and figure out what it means. Having a lot of data in front of you is just confusing if you don't know how to analyze it. And that's why everybody's working on AI now, because they're working on smart software that figures out how to read the data. What does all this data mean? What can I figure out, right? And so that's the question everybody's trying to answer. And the tech companies that answer that first are going to be big winners. So that's where you want to look for investment opportunities.
Now, investment opportunities is always around us. And I know that, billionaires and hectomillionaires and decamillionaires, they all focus on focus groups and brainstorming groups. How important it is, Jeff, for entrepreneurs and business owners to basically develop their own brainstorming groups so they can help one another to basically break through their barriers in regards to taking their businesses to the ultimate level?
Yeah, so I think you're exactly right there. All these really smart business people have a peer group like that, a mastermind group, a group that they meet with regularly where they share ideas. And I think it's really, really important because of the fact that every one of us has a different background and perspective, right? So like I told you, since I'm come out of tech, I have a lot of thoughts on tech and tech companies, but I'm not the financial markets guy. So I have to have in my mastermind somebody that knows financial markets. And then maybe it might be someone that's really studying China as a market. So somebody, because it's so huge, somebody that knows China on your team, and somebody that knows consumer trends. So a mastermind, I think, is really important. Warren Buffett and people like that do that really well. right? They'll get together and they'll talk about all these markets and trends and what's going on in the world so that they can spot the trend before everyone else. They can be the first one to figure out what's happening next. So I do think it's really important. In fact, starting in 2020, I'm actually, for the first time, I put together a mastermind group that people can join. If people want to find out, by the way, they can just go to jeffhoffman.com and on my website and send me a message. But I think it's so important that I've been doing the same thing. So if you get a chance to be part of one of those peer groups, of a mastermind group, or put one together with your own friends, you should do that. And you should get together periodically to share everybody's perspective on markets and on trends and on technology, because all your ideas together are a lot more powerful than any one person's alone, because we all come at it from a different angle.
Now, earlier you mentioned that powerful word, marketing. Can you explain to the audience, what is your definition of marketing and what does marketing mean to you?
Sure. It is so powerful that here is a fact. There are some of the most amazing products in the history of humanity are still sitting in someone's basement because they didn't know how to market them. And yet, here's the other side of that, Arthur. Some of the stupidest products ever made millions and millions of dollars because they were good at marketing. So somewhere, somebody has probably invented some product that, could help deaf people hear or handicapped people walk, but that person didn't know how to market it, so it's still in their basement. Meanwhile, if you remember some of these products, many years ago, there was a product called the Pet Rock. The guy took a rock, painted a face on it, put it in a little box, and made millions selling it. So how does the guy that invented a rock, the Pet Rock, become a multimillionaire, and people that have invented real products are broke? And the answer is because they didn't respect marketing enough. So marketing is all about connecting with people, getting their attention, and then explaining to them why the thing that you created is something they can't live without, right? So good marketers are the ones that first they have to get your attention. And then once you're looking, they say, look, you have to have this thing that I invented. You have to have this thing that we sell, or your life won't be okay without it. So good marketers convince you need something. Like I said, that's why there have been some amazing products in the world, but you and I have never heard of them because the person didn't know how to market them. And there have been some not very good products in the world. It's funny because many years ago, talking to Bill Gates and Paul Allen, I knew Paul for many years, he was the other founder of Microsoft. They were kind of joking. I was with them in Seattle one day, and they were kind of joking that saying that Windows, their main product, right, on PCs, wasn't even a good product. It was just well marketed, right? They were like the Apple operating system, iOS, was a way better piece of work. Apple's software was way better than Windows, but they marketed Windows so well that it was on every computer everywhere. It wasn't even a great product. There was a product, a machine product then called Unix. And they're like, Unix is a better product than ours, but we were smart enough to market it to everyone that owned a home computer. So good marketing is absolutely critical. And in many cases, like I said, not very good products were really successful and people got really rich because they had really good marketing versus people that had unbelievably brilliant products that marketed them so bad that you and I never understood what they were and we never bought one. Got to have marketing on your team.
You say you have to have marketing on your team. So would you say that marketing done right is the quickest path to the sell?
Yes, so that's another important point. You can't get rich. You don't get rich by saving money, by the bottom line. You don't get rich by saving $1 here and saving $1 there and spending a little less here. You get rich by driving tons of money in the front door. Right? They can spend it, you can live as you want. So you focus on driving traffic, driving customers, right? Driving money in the front door, and that's what marketing does. Marketing is what gets people to pull their wallet out or their credit card out and send you money. And so you get rich by driving marketing. You don't get rich by people that, are constantly saying, what if we got chairs that had no padding? We'll save money on chairs. And then we'll buy wooden tables instead of metal tables. you're not going to save your way to wealth. You're going to earn your way to wealth. So instead, focus on this marketing that drives dollars in the front door, and then you don't have to worry about counting your coins because you've got so many of them.
Well, I love the simple statement that Warren Buffett says. He says, the more you learn, the more you earn.
Absolutely agree. And he's smart. He is who he is because he's smart enough to know that it doesn't matter how old you are. Every day is a learning opportunity. And sometimes the worst thing that happens to people, Arthur, is success, because they're successful and they suddenly think they're really smart. I've known a lot of people like that. You see yourself on TV or on a magazine, and you're like, hey, I must be really smart. And then when you think you're that smart, you stop listening to other people. When you stop listening, you stop learning. And when you stop learning, you're done. So the smartest people realize that you never know, and that every day is another chance to learn, no matter how old you are, no matter how smart you are. So people like that are always looking for learning opportunities. So they're the ones that keep growing because they have their mind open like that. You got to keep your mind open to new things every day.
So would you say that ideas is the real capital of real wealth?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the beauty of it is, I always tell people that entrepreneurs are like farmers, but we're idea farmers. That's our crop, right? You got to plant a lot of seeds to grow a crop. So the most successful people, by the way, all these successful entrepreneurs had failures along the way, but they had failures because they were pushing it. If you are listening to this podcast, if you've never failed, then you're not trying hard enough, right? The ones that push the envelope, that push the edge, they fall because they're pushing so hard. They trip and they stumble. So if you don't fail, you're just not taking enough risk and you're not trying hard enough. All the most successful people failed a lot of times along the way, but they failed because they were taking chances and they weren't taking the safe route. They were trying stuff that other people said, I don't know if that's going to work. And they said, you're right, but there's only one way to find out. I'm going to just try it. And if it fails, I'll pick myself up and try something else. The people that were afraid to try never succeeded. So they never failed, but they also never succeeded big. So ideas is, that's the crop. That's the seeds that we plant, and a lot of them fell. There are times I look back at my life and laugh at myself and say, man, what a stupid idea that was. But at least I kept the ideas coming. I have a friend, Ira, calls me once a month with an idea. Jeff, you got it. It's an idea. And 9 out of 10 times I tell him, man, I don't think it'll work, but come back next month. He never stops spinning ideas, and it's a numbers thing. I have 100 ideas, 99 of them aren't good, but one of them is brilliant. One of them makes you healthy. So if you don't spend the time creating 100 ideas and knowing that a bunch of them are going to be wrong, you're never going to get that one that's going to push you over the top. So ideas, the other beauty of ideas, Arthur, is that you don't have to be rich to start with, right? I gave this was a funny story. I gave this young black man a ride home from the airport one day, but I gave him a ride home because he seemed to me that he was kind of down on his luck and could use a little help in his life. So, and his girlfriend didn't pick him up. They'd been in a fight. She'd taken his car, and I was like, I feel bad for this guy. I'll cut him some slack. I'll give him a ride home from the airport. Driving home from the airport, and I'm like, wait a minute, where exactly do you live? Because we're driving through this neighborhood where the houses are mansions, right? And we get to this gigantic mansion. And I said, what are we doing? And he goes, that's my house. And I said, okay, then what's going on here? And he laughed and he said, you felt sorry for me, didn't you? And I said, well, I did. He said, that's why you gave me a ride. I said, yeah. And he said, that was really sweet and thoughtful. And he said, but you don't have to feel sorry for me, I'm fine. And I said, what's your story? And he said, well, I was, in the inner city, young black male without much of a chance and not much money or anything. And he said, and I had an idea one day, just an idea. And I worked really hard and turned my idea into something. His name's Lonnie, and he's the guy that created the Super Soaker. Remember those squirt guns?
Yes.
And he sold the company Super Soaker to Hasbro for $100 million. And he's like, don't worry about me. But what he had was an idea, right? Because he had a brilliant idea one day, his whole life is set. And so Anybody anywhere can come up with the next great idea. It doesn't matter how old, how young you are, if you're male, female, black, white, Christian, Muslim, none of it matters. All that matters is if you have a really cool idea, your whole life can change the next day. So never stop creating ideas. Even when your friends laugh at you because it was a dumb idea, don't stop. Like I said, I tell my friends, okay, I'm an idiot. You guys are right. It was a dumb idea. But tomorrow I'll probably have another one. Just keep creating ideas. Let them flow because eventually one of them will hit. But they won't hit if you give up.
Now, we have entrepreneurs and business leaders, Jeff, that they only own businesses, but they looking forward to building a big business that they can sell. Now, let's talk about cash flow and the EBITDA of a business. Can you break that down in layman's terms about what EBITDA really means in a business, and how can people focus on their cash flow to, increase their top line revenues in their current businesses?
Sure. So let's make it even simpler. Many businesses that I look at don't have a value equation. And a value equation is a really simple question to ask yourself. And that's this: will a lot of people in the world pay you for the thing you do a lot more than it costs you to do it? And so many businesses, by the way, I was just on national TV recently talking about Uber, because here's the bad news. If you invest in Uber about stock, you're down 40% right now. You made a bad investment. And the reason why is because Uber loses $1.20 on every ride. Every time someone gets in an Uber, Uber loses $1.20. So last year, they lost over $15 billion. It's a bad business. It's a really cool idea, but it doesn't have a value equation. The value equation is when you figure out what it's going to cost you to run your business, make your product, and then find out what people are willing to pay you, and you determine a lot of people got to pay you a lot more than your product costs, or it's a bad business to be in. So Uber doesn't have an EBITDA. They lose money right now, and the stock market is killing them. And the stock is crashing. So is Lyft, by the way, because of the same problem. So for anybody listening to this, it's a business owner, what you should be doing, and especially, by the way, early on, you have an idea. You need to go out and ask people. You need to do 2 calculations, which will determine your cash flow and your EBITDA. You need to sit down and say, how much is it really going to cost me to run this business and create this product? So when I had the idea, I told you about one of my first businesses, which was these kiosks to print boarding passes in airports. Before I got deep into a company and spent all the money I had, which wasn't much, I was broke then. I went and I started doing the analysis, the homework. What would it cost to build a kiosk? What would it cost to build 10 of them? What will it cost to ship them? Because I had to put them in airports. And it's all them. What's it going to cost to service them and make sure they keep running? So I was doing a spreadsheet to figure out what this business is going to cost me. Then, before I started really building them, I went out and I started contacting airlines. And I said, how much would you pay me for one of these, right? Here's what I think the price is, but what are you willing to pay? Because this, regardless of what you want to charge, you got to find out what the market will bear. And so when I came back, I said, it will cost me about this much money to build kiosks and to put them in airport and take service and keep them running. But airlines are willing to pay me this much money. And the second number was way bigger than the first number. So I said, now that's it. I'm going to go build this business. And today there's a big problem if you Google, whether you Google Uber or recently the company WeWork crashed, right? The stock and the offering. And it crashed for the same reason. The amount it costs to run a WeWork location, they are co-working spaces, is way more than people are willing to pay for it. So they're losing money on every single day. And their investors just bailed out. Yep. And it crashed. So that's why, in fact, as you know, 2 weeks ago, the Uber CEO quit because he can't figure out how to make the company profitable. So he just went home. Now, granted, he went home with a lot of money for coming up with the idea. You get paid for ideas. But long term, you have to do the math and you have to say, what is it going to cost me to run this business? and how much are people really willing to pay. And if those numbers are not far apart, you've got a problem. Go do something else. So I told a lot of people, Arthur, they said, what do you do my business? And I've told them I'd shut it down. Those are another one because you're never going to make money. You're not going to have the cash flow to create any EBITDA. You're not going to have earnings. You're never going to make profits, and people, anybody that invests in your company won't be happy. Like investors are not happy right now.
Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes down to investors buying a profitable business that's worth billions or multi-millions of dollars, do they focus on buying a company where they can actually build a book of business up, or do they just focus on the EBITDA in regards to how much cash flow the company is generating? Because I know that entrepreneurs and business owners, they really focus on, they don't buy a business because the business has assets. They buy the business because it has earnings.
Okay, so the good news is both. In the, you know, you're safer, your odds are better if people are buying your book of business and you actually have earnings, right? Because then you get to do multiples. You get to sell your business for whatever, 10, 20 times the amount of money you're making every year, right? It's a function of your earnings. So the big payouts come when you have earnings. However, in the tech world, there have been a lot of companies that weren't making any money. Somebody bought them. YouTube at the time wasn't making money. Facebook at the time wasn't making money. These companies, investors wanted to buy that stock because they were buying access to those customers. So they were buying all the eyeballs, all the millions of Facebook users, all the millions of YouTube users. So in the tech business, there are a lot of companies.
I just want to interject real quick because when you talk, your audio is sounding choppy.
Okay. I haven't moved at all, so I'm not sure why that is.
Okay. Oh, you sound fine now.
All right. So, yeah, the answer is both. Most companies are buying earnings most of the time, but there are cases where they're just buying access to your customer base because they want to sell something else to those customers. So while that will work, your odds are way better if you actually generate earnings. That's really what you want to focus on.
Now, I know a couple of years back, billionaire Mark Cuban, he sold his company broadcast.com for $5.8 billion to Yahoo, but at the time it was only worth $13.5 million. Why do you think that Yahoo bought his brand?
Yeah, well, you can't, Arthur, you can't go back to that time because they threw the company in the trash 11 months after they bought it. Wow. That was a weird moment in time that will never happen again. So don't look at those stories because everybody went nuts during the internet and everybody made stupid decisions. And there were a lot of deals like that. Mark was just the luckiest guy alive. The company wasn't even built and it didn't work and it was trash. They threw it away. 11 months after they bought it, they wrote it off as a loss and threw it in the garbage because he didn't have a company. That'll never happen again. Now it's the opposite. Now they're looking really hard and saying, you better have a real business or we won't invest. So those people were at this weird moment in time called the internet bubble that people made crazy, stupid decisions with their money and they'll never do it again. So some people were just lucky and in the right place at the right time.
Now, is Yahoo in competition with Google?
Yeah, they all really are. You know, Google is so strong now that Yahoo's been fading for a long time. They've got to come up with some kind of innovation to try to get back relevant again. They lost the relevance the same way that, you know, Google became more and more dominant.
Wow. Now,
by the way, Arthur, I got about 5 minutes left.
All righty. Can you explain to the audience, what is your definition of marketing? Or should I say, not just marketing, but what is the best advice that you have ever received in business as well as your personal life?
You know, I think, let me say that marketing part, which is about the power of good storytelling. right? Good marketing is good storytelling. They engage you in a story that you can later relate to your friends. When they say, tell me about this company or this product or this person, and they know the story. So I think that when somebody told me that you got to learn to tell a good story in marketing and personally, being a good storyteller is a really powerful skill set to have in business and in life. And I think I had a mentor. His name was Roger. And Roger helped me work on how to tell stories more clearly, how to get to the point. Sometimes now, when I'm listening to people pitching stuff to me, they're going on, and I'm thinking to myself, what is your point? Why are you here? I don't even know what you're talking about. Make a point, right? And so being a clear storyteller, that people understand what your message was and why you're talking to them is really important. The best marketers do that. But the same goes to each of your listeners as a person. Right? People will want to be around you more, and they'll listen to you and they'll remember you more if you actually tell stories that have a point, right? So when they leave, you don't want people to say, man, that guy would never stop talking. I don't even know what he was talking about. What you want them to say is, let's invite Arthur. I love it when he's here, because they want to hear more of your stories and they understand the points you're trying to make. So my mentor, Roger, told me to focus on being a good storyteller, and that enabled our marketing. Our marketing was really effective for my companies because we were able to tell stories that people remember.
So facts tell, but stories always sell.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And when you can mix those two things, that's even more powerful, right? When you have a story and then people dig under it and the facts prove your story, then you got a super win. That's really good stuff. Why don't you pick one closing question and let's wrap it up. What would you like to end with?
Let's talk about hiring and firing the wrong people. When people are looking to hire the right people, like for example, I know that the owner of Zappos, Tony Hsieh, he sold that company for $1.6 billion, but they have a culture. And if people working for that company don't fit into the culture, they'll pay you $3,000 just to leave because they don't feel as though that this man or woman fits into the culture, and they feel as though this man or woman would toxic the culture. How important it is for entrepreneurs and business owners to develop a culture for their company.
Yeah, so I think that's a big part of the reason that Zappos was successful, because they focus on the culture. So the answer to your question is it's really, really important, right? If you think about a company like Google, the culture, they had movies made about it, right? There's a movie called The Intern where these guys work at Google. The culture is so known, and people think of Google as having slides in the office instead of staircases. You can slide down the slide, and they have coffee shops and they throw frisbees around. There's a feeling of the culture of working there. So the best companies create a culture that attracts the right kind of people. You need the right kind of people to work for you, your company. You need them to be your kind of people. So you got to create a company that is the kind of place that your kind of people would want to work. If it's young, high energy, fun loving, whatever, I'm just throwing words out there, then your culture should look like that. Your office should look like that. You should behave that way. I remember one day when I first became the CEO, because when I had been an employee, one day we were laughing at work, and our boss came up and he said, stop laughing. And I said, why did I have to stop laughing? And he said, I don't pay you guys to goof around. We're not goofing around. We're working really hard. And he said, well, you wouldn't be laughing at work. And I said, we're laughing because we're in a good mood. Things are going well. Somebody said something funny, so we laugh. And he said, well, I don't pay you to have fun here. And I was like, well, people that are having fun work harder, right? If you were looking at two dugouts in a baseball game, and the Yankees, let's say the Yankees are winning every game, they're the ones throwing stuff at each other, playing pranks, laughing in the dugout. The team that hasn't won a game in 3 weeks is sitting in the dugout like death, right? Winning is fun. It should be fun. That's a cultural thing. So I wrote on the door of my office in giant letters, I wrote, it is okay to have fun here, because I wanted the culture. I wanted to hear people laughing and having a good time at work. I want you to like working here. That's our culture. So the best companies define a culture that attracts the kind of people you want. And what you were talking about, what Zappos did, it was smart, was they said, if you don't like our culture, don't work here, just leave. If you don't really believe in us, you shouldn't work here. I think that's true. build a culture that represents the kind of place you want to work, and then fire the people or ask them to leave that don't like that culture, and make sure you're hiring people that fit that culture. I think it's critically important, and it's why Zappos was successful. Arthur, thanks for spending this hour with me, man. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, I really appreciate you, Jeff, coming on my show and educating my audience about building wealth principles. I gladly appreciate it. You're a gift from God.
Well, thank you, my friend. I've got to head actually to Dubai, so I'm going to have to get ready to hit the road, but you and I will stay in touch like we always do, and I thank you for spending the time.
And can you explain to the audience before you sign off exactly where they can find you?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what, in business, the social media I'm on the most is my LinkedIn account. But otherwise, it's really easy. My email is just jeff@jeffhoffman.com, and my website's jeffhoffman.com. JEFFHOFFMAN. Easy enough. Feel free to reach out.
Do you have any last pearls of wisdom for the audience?
Yeah, again, Arthur started our conversation with this, which is start building your team every day, right? And start network all the time, everywhere you go, talk to people, build your network, and create your team, your network before you need it. You will go much farther if you surround yourself with people that are smarter than you are.
To everyone that's listening and watching right now, I highly recommend getting involved with the phenomenal Jeff Hoffman. You hear the passion that came through his voice on my show today. He broke down layman's terms about culture. He broke down layman's terms about wealth building principles. Go to his website, jeffhoffman.com. He has phenomenal content that could take your mindset and your business to the next level. But remember, you have to implement what you learn. And to make the initial investment, and invest in his phenomenal book, which is called Scale. It will give you a different perspective on how you can actually increase your top line revenues to the next level and build a team to help you excel and adopt the abundance mindset. So, to everyone that's listening, remember that the strongest asset that each and every one of you have is your brain, and what you think about and what you take action on, that will become your reality. And your mentality creates your reality. May God bless each and every one of you. And bye for now. And I highly recommend getting involved with the phenomenal, the outside the box thinker, the billionaire, Jeff Hoffman. Jeff, I really appreciate you coming on my show and conveying value to my audience.
Thank you, Arthur, and we'll talk to you again soon, buddy.
Okay, talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And bye for now, everyone.